Hello everyone, it's Eric. Let me ask you something. Who are your favorite rap battle creators? I imagine a lot of you answered right away. Epic Rap Battles of History, Freshly Canal, Eddie FRB, Snakebite126, and Fight Marker. All excellent picks, and certainly among my favorites. But there is another creator who's not quite as popular as these, but is still most definitely among my favorites. That creator is Tommy Salommy. Tommy made his first rap battle in 2020, and he's now made 13. All of them are different, and yet Tommy's battles still have a distinct identity. To me, they feel like the ultimate homemade ERBs. They don't have a studio budget behind them, but they're still super creative, funny, and memorable. There are technical aspects that can be improved in all of them, and I think that might turn away those who are only fans of the absolute highest quality. However, I fell in love with rap battles not only for crisp production, but mainly because they were fun. That's what I would call Tommy's battles. Fun. While some of them may have bumps, I have fun with all of them, and he's made some of my favorite rap battles, period. In this video, I will share my love of this creator's battles by ranking them and detailing what makes them stand out from the rest of the crowd. Let's begin with the least awesome battle. Number 13 is Squidward vs. King DDD. This is Tommy's first battle, and it feels like it was made for a different reason than the others. With the bad flute music, lower mic quality, and meme gifs in the intro, it instantly reminds me of the now common joke ERBs like Icarus vs. the Sun and Hydrogen Bomb vs. Coughing Baby. However, this battle not only predates those memes, but also has a lot of genuinely good elements. Despite feeling like an intentionally jokey parody of ERB, I quite like it. This is still the weakest of the catalog, but there are great moments throughout. The final 4 lines of Squidward's second verse have insane flow and pull off some pretty clever disses. I also love DDD using right back at you for a rebuttal. Granted, the writing clearly had less time in the oven than the other battles, based on lines like the one right after Right Back At Ya, in which Squidward is called a Krabby Patty Snatcher. I imagine Tommy thought of the Snatcher rhyme, maybe gave it a second thought, but just carried on because this was more of a joke battle. That said, I think this battle's biggest shortcoming is actually on the joke battle side. The most outrageous and weird jokes like the Pablo from Backyardigans reference feel like they were made to be the funniest lines, but they don't land as hard as the more conventional disses in my opinion. I mostly enjoy this first genuine rap battle merits, but it is still the most unremarkable of Tommy's battles. There's some great lines, but there are some that don't land as well because of flow issues. For example, the line,
"Been trying since '92 to defeat a pink ball,"
has a very slow and awkward flow. Other than that, there isn't much to say. The voices are not the most interesting and they don't sound a ton like the characters. The beat is just fine, and while the video has some creative moments, it's obviously not as impressive as later battles. Still, while this is quaint, it's a quick but enjoyable watch with moments that showed what was to come for the series. Number 12 is Tommy Salommy vs. Well-Informed Consumer. Yes, I'm counting this. This was a Patreon advertisement presented like a rap battle, and obviously, that's a disadvantage. But it's still very well made. The whole thing flows nicely and has some surprisingly solid rhyme scheme for something I imagine was made pretty quickly. It's the shortest battle for sure, but I still love jokes like the background budget bit, the consumer complaining about the Patreon being $3, and even a line as simple as,
"It's this awesome website that folks are calling Patreon."
makes me chuckle. Not much more to say. I just like it even if it's definitively the smallest project on the list. It's a quick and creative way to make an announcement, but very much a creative way to make the announcement. In fact, it has me convinced. I'm joining the Patreon right now. Number 11 is C-3PO vs. Optimus Prime. Tommy's third battle feels like a natural progression from Squidward, and while it's still sort of hit or miss, I've always really liked it and consider it a major improvement. The C-3PO side is the star. Amir's voice is very fun, and right from the line,
"If you want an easy battle, then I'm not the droid you're looking for,"
it was over for Optimus. 3PO just did not let up. His lines remain consistently clever while still feeling very in character due to his irritable nature. Some of the dumber jokes here work as well. My favorite being,
"I'll suffer the equivalent of guns on a laptop."
I think the Optimus side misses a bit more. I like the voice, even though it's far off from the real thing. It's very comedic and leads to the deliveries like,
"Rapper in disguise."
In terms of other elements, the video is more interesting than Squidward because the characters are more effectively incorporated into each other's scenes. The beat is also more engaging and catchy than the Squidward one. This is all in all just an improved version of the Squidward format. Optimus does miss a bit for me. I think his jokes are just not as creative or funny, maybe because I don't know Transformers that well, but I think lines like Duolingo in space and shaped like an Oscar, that's why you're such a grouch, that are commented about a lot, don't really do much for me. The latter was a funny idea, but I think it could have been used in a more effective diss about the Oscars themselves. Still, this is a very fun battle with a C-3PO sweep. Number 10 is Magneto versus Magneton. This is the last of the non-live action battles thus far. Let's talk about that first. The other battles all have large advantages in the video department. Live action is inherently more interesting to me. While this AMV style video still has creativity, just seeing costumes and being able to put a face to the voice enhances the lines so much. The video is not bad, but the remaining 9 battles definitely have far superior ones in my opinion. That aside, this battle's quite good. It improves upon the others of this style with more creative writing. Even though it's by far the longest I've discussed yet, this battle has the greatest proportion of lines I love. To name them all would take forever, but I'll name a personal favorite and the ones that stand out from the rest of the pack. The best, in my opinion, is
I can end this battle 75 cents.
in reference to sending a quarter through a guy's head. It's a very creative and funny way to flex powers that I've always loved. The other lines that really stand out are those in reference to the Holocaust. This is an important part of Magneto's character, so Magneton makes a concentration joke with a visual that helps ensure the line is more funny than shocking. Still, it's pretty shocking, and Magneto has multiple rebuttals. The one that sticks out to me is, "You know how I feel about those who claim to only be following orders." What a terrifying but hilarious line. I love that. Tommy is able to pull off lines about terrible tragedies in a tasteful but comedic way, and this battle stands out for that reason. However, there is a big focus on rhyme schemes that I think get kind of messy. The one that bothers me most is the 4 lines that rhyme with steel's stainless, one of which says, "I don't have your zeal, hatred." It's just not a proper phrase grammatically, and it was obviously made with the rhyme in mind first and the convention second. I don't like that personally, not only as a grammar freak, but also as someone who appreciates writing that feels like things the characters, or any characters, would say. If they could talk, of course. I also think certain rhyme schemes mess with the flow a little too much, such as the transition out of the last Magneton verse. It sounds like there's a delay, and it stands out because the battle's not very fast-paced. When the flow is slower, it can be harder to keep the flow catchy, and there's more space to mess it up. That does happen here a little bit. My one other critique is the beats. This is my least favorite beat in the series. The vocal sample annoys me, unfortunately, and I find the vibe unfitting for the battle and lacking in catchiness. A catchy rhythm in the beat could have improved some of the flow issues. There is still standout writing in this battle, and I would consider it quite good on the whole, but I have more critiques with it than the top 9. Number 9 is Saraman the White versus Osama bin Laden. This is Tommy's newest battle, and the second battle to feature Everyman Osama. It is a fairly short and simple one, and there are things about it that make it the least engaging of the remaining 9, but there are still some fantastic elements. The video certainly has some high points, most notably the Saruman costume. While the beard around the lips looks a little off, the makeup is otherwise so good at transforming the body actor into the character. There's also some good visual gags, ranging from funny references to the previous Osama battle to the well-constructed final moment with Sauron and the plane. On that note, the closer is just brilliant. It's,
"After we strike Isengard, tell Sauron to guard his eye."
while not only demonstrating exceptional wordplay, this also reinforces the 2 attack idea. There are plenty of other good jokes in this, like the Lord of the Rings one and Sharia law, so there are some great perks to the writing of video that make this a very solid project. The area that keeps me from revisiting this one too often, though, is the audio. I think the beat is good, but often lacks punch. The section that references the first Osama battle suffers especially. The beat just sounds like a lullaby, and it removes some of the impact of the writing. Furthermore, the vocal performances are not among my favorites. The deep but subtle voice for Saraman does not lend itself to impactful deliveries, and the Osama voice is less commanding and more goofy than the first one, and I like that first voice better. There's also a higher quantity of mediocre lines than other battles above this. Things like "You have chosen death," and even the reference to the other Osama battle I mentioned just don't put enough spin on the source material to be all that clever or funny. This battle is fairly short and sweet, and I love moments of it, but it's just not quite as memorable on the whole as the 8 battles that I would truly consider great. Number 8 is William Afton versus Anakin Skywalker. Now for something completely different, but really good. This battle was made in 100 hours, and that does show in some areas. The video and costumes are not the most interesting, and certain performances are not quite up to the standard of the bigger projects, but I've always found this battle awesome. To be fair, it is slow. This battle feels slower than all of the other ones Tommy's made. That makes the pacing hard for many to get into. For me, it's fine. While this slow pace turns others away, I stay engaged on the whole because the beat is excellent and the writing is even more so. Where does one start with the writing? Nearly every line is genius. There's hilarious bits like the
I don't like FNAF
part, clever wordplay like two suns like Tatooine, and insane disses such as
But unlike when you promised to free your mother, I always come back.
The only moments I don't think fully work are the repeating words in Anakin verse 1, and the line,
I'm getting with the senator. Well, you're never having sex.
but the latter is still really funny. This writing just connects Star Wars and FNAF in brilliant ways, making me so glad this ridiculous matchup exists. That's all for this one. The video and audio are more so just good for what they are, but the writing is fantastic by any battle standards, 100 hours or a million. The battle's over 4 minutes long, but it keeps me hooked all the way through, and there's something for everybody to enjoy. Maybe others don't love all 4 minutes, but I've loved the whole thing since it was released and I still know it by heart. Number 7 is Hamlet vs. Oedipus Rex. Just like Afton, this battle's beat is exceptional and the writing is something for everyone. The battle does have a faster tempo though, allowing for tighter and catchier flow, but what really stands out is that it is some of Tommy's most creative and mind-blowing lines. I think
I turn wordplay to swordplay just by forging a letter.
Might be his best line of all time. Sheer brilliance. Then Hamlet ends his verse with 6 lines referencing the famous Sphinx riddle in a way that has some syllable cramming, but still pulls off exceptional disses and jokes. The other I think is a true all-timer is
Your chivalrous father appeared to men at the garrison. As a transparent fact, I mean, you still pale in comparison.
Tommy and the others who helped write this one were in top form for this battle. However, this can't rank any higher because of an issue that makes it a little less memorable. The beat and flow are good, but they both lack variation, and with a length of 3.5 minutes, there's more or less the same flow the whole time that starts to blur together. That's why I ranked battles with more versatile audios and lyrics higher. I also think the video is a little less interesting than the top 6. The scene transitions and cameos are a bit more basic and less creative. I like the body acting from the main two a lot, especially Tommy committing to keeping his eyes shut, but I can also note that he looks like a giant on that background. In terms of lyrical content, this is top tier, but while I am a substance over style kind of guy, I think the lack of style in some areas does keep this from being elevated to the top 5 or even further. Number 6 is Hercules vs. King David. This battle is also something completely different, but the opposite of Anakin. Whereas that one's very slow, this one is very fast. Maybe too fast, but thanks to the quick pace, it doesn't have the pacing issues of the previous two. That's good, but admittedly, certain things get a little messy in the writing and audio departments. The flow is so speedy and not always the most polished. The very opening phrase,
Zeus' favorite son,
is not easy to rap quickly. Tommy keeps up with his own flow pretty well as King David, but I do think Stouffer trips up a couple of times with lines like that first one. He definitely does his best, and I like his voice acting a lot, but I think the writing could have been cleaned up to make the battle even more catchy. As is, it's pretty darn catchy. The funk beat is very enjoyable and packs in more variety than Hamlet, even though the battle is way shorter. That's one key strength of this battle, but beyond that, Tommy tries some new things that work really well. Visually, this is one of my favorites in the series. Even though David standing on his background doesn't always look right, and some of these CGI bits look a bit weird, there are so many creative and fun gags. From David taking down Goliath, to the chiseling of the statue, to my personal favorite, Cerberus, this video makes me smile the whole time. It's also worth noting that the costumes are both really good, and the body acting on both sides is super expressive. Top tier for Tommy, no doubt. Then there's the writing. You have the fantastic disses we expect, like,
I thought 12 labors was a bit excessive.
and,
Two rings than the Olympic Games, which I invented.
however, the standout strength of this writing is the rhyme schemes. Not a huge focus in most previous Tommy battles, but there are so many smooth ones here, and they fit the faster tempo wonderfully. The one that stands out to me most is
faced down an army by myself when I was still a teen. But now I'm up against a different kind of Philistine.
Sometimes the schemes are incorporated into awesome references such as "My way is Yahweh," which didn't need to be there, but just makes the writing even better. So in addition to what are now his standard great rap battle jokes, Tommy pulls off some especially smooth writing that makes this battle easy to get stuck in your head and fun to revisit. It's a unique Tommy project, and while it's not always perfect around the edges, it's a big success in my eyes. Number 5 is Henry VIII vs. Scott Pilgrim. A classic. It is everything I love about Tommy's battles. The beat is custom produced, probably betraying some rap conventions I don't know about, but it still sounds awesome and fits the characters. I especially love the bells on the Henry side and the guitar riffs in the last verse. They sound awesome, and they're just fun to listen to. The video is also super creative. There are many location changes, cameos, and fun props that keep the whole thing very dynamic. There's always something to look at, and to list every moment I love in the video would take forever. But there's a level of detail that stands out to me. Things like the custom-made Dance Dance Revolution arrows to match the flow, and the replication of Scott beating Gideon are phenomenal. There's also just funny moments like Henry poking Scott, and then Scott laughing during that. It always makes me chuckle. What do we have for writing? Non-stop bangers. It's simple flow overall, but there is enough variety in the other aspects of the battle that this never feels like an issue. I never would have even thought about it before seeing the battle, honestly. It's just one where I focus on the hilarious jokes. I only knew the Scott Pilgrim movie, but there are awesome lines that stand out here of all sorts, delivered very well by Tommy. I lose it at things as simple as,
I think you need a tutor to teach you how to
but
rhyme.
then there are brilliant wordplays like the
Envy dumped you hard, and I guess the feeling stuck. When your lady is still singing about a garbage truck.
Then there are great disses like,
Cause your flow's like your children, dead upon burn.
You broke Knife's heart, cause you should have used a cheat code.
and
I don't need your whole resume to tell you're well-rounded.
this battle is just so great on all fronts. My only critique is that Frank the Fresh as Henry VIII does not open his mouth wide enough when he's saying the words. That's a minor thing, but his body acting does not always sync up with the voice that's a little more loud and pompous, especially since there's a line about how big his mouth is. Otherwise, this battle is pure epicness in every way. Number 4 is Osama bin Laden vs. Waldo. This is, in my opinion, the first masterpiece on the list. It just works. It feels like a prime ERB, but with even more creativity. It can't be easy to use a character with so little lore like Waldo, or a character as controversial as Osama, but both are used so well here. The whole thing is equal parts fire and funny, with great and impressive visuals and some of the best acting in the series. Nearly every second of this project is inspired, but the peak is this section.
Little freak, don't meddle with the Middle East. I'll put a metal piece between your brittle British teeth and go full auto. Then dump you in the desert heat and leave you there for weeks and weeks until your family begins to wonder, where's Waldo?
Let's just break down these 4 lines. You have some incredible rhyme schemes that hook you right from "Don't meddle with the Middle East," a powerful delivery that flows flawlessly, several Mujahideen cameos with silly body acting, a brilliant Waldo cameo, a simple but effective wipe transition to a nice desert background scattered throughout the battle for variety, and fantastic body acting during both the aggressive parts and the snarky "Where's Waldo?" Everything about this is perfect, simultaneously brutal and gut-busting. That balance continues throughout the whole battle, like this insane couplet.
With the rad and radical and the fun and fundamentalist. But warn your brother Oddlaw, cause I'm known to take down twins.
Admittedly, Waldo's lines are not as harsh. He gets the disses about Osama killing people out of the way a bit too quickly. But he still has hilarious lines after that, like,
You created Al-Qaeda, but your rhymes all kinda suck.
I still love the Waldo verses as a whole, and the entire battle is such an entertaining experience. That one Osama vs. 1 section is some of the very best of any fan-made rap battle, and the rest is still fantastic. Number 3 is TwoFace versus the Phantom of the Opera. In many ways, this is the best one. It's clear that a ton of effort went into it, and it feels like the most cinematic of Tommy's battles. The video, audio, and writing all contribute to a battle that feels grand in scale and more technically proficient than the previous ones. It's awesome, and the battle tries to be more dramatic than others while still maintaining the humor associated with the series. I'd say it succeeds and then some. Certainly, every element of this battle earns some sort of superlative. On the video side, that TwoFace costume is extraordinary, and my favorite in the series because it brilliantly brings an animated character to life. Props to Tommy for keeping his mouth open like that for an extended period as well. For audio, I think The Phantom is Tommy's best vocal performance. It's commanding and powerful. He could join the opera with that. I also think it's probably the best beat in the series. There are many others that I could prefer, but from the piano to choir, this one sounds fantastic and fits the unique vibe of the battle wonderfully. For the writing, there are fantastic jokes such as,
"This guy's a phantom, his real name's Derek,"
which speaks to me. There are also clever disses like,
You ought to join the opera with that powerful projecting.
wordplay can be found all over here, though none of the lines to me stand out quite as much as something like the swordplay line from Hamlet. What does stand out is the top-notch characterization of this battle. Most of Tommy's battles are not focused on exploring the mentalities of the rappers. This one is all about that. The writing is not only doing that to fit the more serious vibe, but also to really make these characters feel like they're going at each other on a personal level. Even when they make some funny jokes, it's complemented by incredibly simple but effective moments such as,
"I let my bad side show because I don't pretend to be an angel,"
and
Unscarred most your life, of course you can't understand.
there's plenty more I can praise here. The background changes and cameo animations are especially polished and used well. And the battle is more variation in the writing and beats that make sure no moments go unnoticed. My only critique is that Amir's TwoFace voice seems like it's too gravelly and he struggled to belt out some of the most impactful lines. Granted, the voice does match the makeup really well, so this might have been the best case scenario and TwoFace may be really difficult to pull off. I don't know for sure, but I have tried to pull off the Phantom before in a battle, and I must say that Tommy significantly outperformed me. Well done, Tommy, and this battle is one of your best yet. Number 2 is Palpatine vs. Caligula. Tommy pulled out all the stops in this one, and I adore it. Everything about this feels like a grander scale version of Scott Pilgrim or Waldo, and it's most of the time even better. From start to finish, this is the longest battle in the series. But cutting the lengthy intro and outro, it's still almost 4 minutes of rapping. That length has been a hindrance for previous battles, but I'd be lying if I said I was not hooked for every single moment. Everything about this battle, video, beat, performances, lines, is jam-packed with details both clever and funny. Let's go verse by verse for this one for some variety. We open with Palpatine, whose makeup is stellar, vocal performance is equally impressive, and his beat alludes to the Imperial March, with a very nice piano in there. There's visual cameos from Luke, Yoda, and Queen Amidala in this verse, and the way certain lines are made either more harsh or more funny by certain visuals is awesome. My favorites are the opening couplet referencing the Darth Plagueis scene from Revenge of the Sith, and the crude chart referencing the incest that Caligula did, and also referencing the Death Star. Additionally, the wipe transitions work best here because it's a Star Wars battle. I guess they work in Anakin as well, but you get the point. This verse does not have the most interesting wordplay, but it is a fun one featuring great references, and the harshest disses are accentuated by the video and audio elements I mentioned. Now for Caligula. He begins with similar highlights, a great costume and performance, for example, but this writing speaks to me even more than the Palpatine verse. Even when he has 4 bars that sort of diss himself, they're given a delivery that has such a grand charisma that it's awesome even if the subject matter is technically bad. This is where style can compensate for substance. He still has some great lines though, such as,
That verse was written so poorly I thought it was your granddaughter.
another highlight is the electric guitar that kicks into the second half of the verse. It's remarkable. There's a hilarious visual of a servant being thrown off a cliff, and an awesome rhyme scheme about Tiberius that I'm so glad exists. But the battle continues to get better. Palpatine returns with some insane lines. Let me just show you some of his best.
"Getting with men and the women and the children too. You take people's wives and use the force, man, your arms are sick as a plagueis. We're collecting seashells that go to war and I get why your real name is Gaius. You'll die at Palpatine Hill now, cause I'm ready to end. This wasn't the first time a Caesar was killed by the Senate."
Even if some are more or less the same subject matter, each is a creative spin that makes the line stand on its own as exceptional. And Palpatine Hill is so brilliant, I wouldn't be surprised if the whole battle was built around it. Great ending for Palpatine, but then it gets even better. We get awesome lines that can only be done in a Rome versus Star Wars battle. Things like,
Be known as the Ides of Imperial March.
Face it, pleb, Rome's importance to your series is vital.
From your very power grab to the numerals in your title.
I appreciate lines that feel like they can only be done for a specific matchup. It makes them feel so fresh and original. There's some great visuals as well, such as the bust over Caligula's face, and the way he throws a Death Star prop in the air, and it leads into a pretty decent animation that's transitioned into wonderfully. Maybe there's some imperfections in the animation, but it's kept in the background, so I don't notice any of them, and that whole moment is just so well executed. At this point, the horns kick in, and I love this part of the beat. It really builds to the climax of Caligula's verse. There's some hilarious lines, also with a self-diss, but even funnier than the previous, that being,
Calling apprentices like I do with mistresses.
Then he ends with a pretty decent rhyme scheme, and it is a vaguely anticlimactic ending, but that's for a reason. We then get a third-party verse from Emperor Cusco. I was so happy when I first saw this, and the verse is fittingly lively and laugh-out-loud funny. While not as grand as the other ones, and therefore maybe not the most satisfying ending for some, I love these silly jokes and references, and the eccentric performance. One thing I noticed when making this video, though, is that Amir's eyes are all over the place. He sometimes looks at the characters, sometimes the camera, sometimes in between. This is technically a flaw, I think, but I also think it works for a fourth wall breaker like Cusco. Then the battle has an extended outro with a fun beat that's easy to nod your head to, and a cavalcade of cameo credits. The amount of people working on this is incredible, and this might be the most impressive overall Tommy battle to date. I can't imagine how much work went into all the elements. I love the project both for its ambition and charm. It's got both in spades, and while I initially was going to put it at fourth, the fact the battle's so much longer than the previous two, but arguably has a greater proportion of exceptional moments in every aspect, made me decide this is now my second favorite battle from one of my favorite creators of all time. But number one is Aladdin versus, SpiderMan! To be clear, this was set from the start. Absolutely nothing can change my mind on this being number one. But why? It's his second battle ever, and no doubt it's less polished than the last we have discussed. The beat's not the most conventional, the mix is not the best out there, there's some weird looking visuals and scene transitions, the voices aren't focused on impressions, and there are some weaker lines here and there. But you know what? None of that matters, and I'll tell you why. I've used the word creative a lot in this video, and while I've more or less said this already, I think Tommy's battles are the epitome of creativity over polish. Not to say they're not impressive and high quality in their own right, but Tommy always seems to go big in every department, no matter how daring it is. This does result in some wonkier moments in nearly every project, but the fact he tries to fulfill ambitious visions so often, and succeeds almost as often, is admirable. It's a mentality I don't quite have, and one I think a lot of people don't have. The fear of failure is so common and difficult to overcome. It's hard to go all in on a video where the end product could fall so short of what you want it to be, but Tommy goes for it anyway. This battle exemplifies that, as there is ambition and creativity everywhere you look and listen. Even if small moments might miss years down the line, the overall package is a tremendous feat that I have adored ever since I first found it. To this day, it is among my favorite rap battles of all time. I love everything about it. The beat is so inventive, alluding to Friend Like Me from Aladdin, and even the Avengers theme at a certain point. It's also just very catchy the whole way through, with the flow complementing it in a simple but effective manner. The rapping is also quite good throughout, with both characters having solid deliveries that sync up with their actions and, when applicable, facial expressions. I love Amir's face at the father figure line. Oh, and by the way,
Don't you need a father figure that bad, bud?
it's just one example of the glorious wordplay used in harsh disses or great flexes. The way these lines are presented also really stands out. The comedic timing on
That's less original than Aladdin, 2019.
had me going crazy when I first watched this battle. I still love that moment. It's also impossible to hate the great transition from
Women find this Arabian Nights voice enchanting. We ain't impressing no one with that white boy dance.
This line also has a mirror on the magic carpet, an imaginative visual that appears multiple times. A lot of simple visuals like that help make this a very complete video, and there's always something to look at. Abu dancing in the background is always funny and adds some life to every scene it's in. There are other funny visuals that aid the disses, and some moments that just go to show the crew having fun. Best example, Doctor Strange just making a goofy face during his line. Do I need to go on? This battle does so much, and nearly all of it is pure fun. I could watch this battle 100 times. In fact, I'm sure I already have. I feel like this still has the most details of any Tommy battle, and it probably still has my favorite writing. Every element oozes passion, and I can guarantee I will know the lyrics by heart for the rest of my life. Realistically, I have not convinced many of you that this is the best battle on the list. There could be a nostalgia factor for me. The battle did play a big role in my inspiration to become a creator of my own. However, I hope I have convinced you that Tommy's series is worth checking out if you haven't done so already. I got into rap battles because they were imaginative and entertaining YouTube videos, and Tommy's battles all exemplify that. If you like fun rap battles, heck, if you like fun videos, you should absolutely check out Tommy's catalog. And I think you might just love Aladdin vs. SpiderMan, my favorite rap battle by Tommy Salommy. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please, if this got you to check out Tommy Salommy, let me know in the comments below. If you go to his videos, tell him I sent you. Subscribe for more rap battles and rankings and other stuff. I'll see you next time.